currently 7:49 p.m. Tuesday, October 11th. That's Central Time, though. Your time, it's around 8:49, around 9 o'clock. Ryan, my good buddy from Sport Management WVU, here to talk some hockey. What's going on?
I'm always excited to talk hockey. This fall is my favorite season for two reasons: football and hockey. I tell everybody that.
Football and hockey are fun. Hockey is something I picked up on in the last 5 years or so. When I was living in Nashville, which we were just talking about, but the Preds were in town, and that was really, I would hear a lot about the Preds, and that was actually when I was living in Nashville was the year they went to the Stanley Cup and lost to your Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, I was maybe a little bit before that because I have two good friends that are huge hockey fans and have been for years. So I always heard them say, and I'd catch games here and there, but like 2014-15 is when I really started to set my roots in hockey, and now I can't turn it off.
I'm trying to think. I think that was the Blackhawks in 2015. Mm-hmm. Played the Lightning.
So admittedly, it was very convenient that like my second and third year of full fandom, the Penguins win, and that makes it easier to get into when your team is actually good, and you're like, okay, I could do this.
Well, I have a similar story. There was one year, so spoiler alert, I have the opening night game on right now, so that's what I'm looking at.
Oh, same.
Between the Rangers and Lightning. But hockey, I just never really got into it in high school, and it was the year I had already graduated high school, and I had, bought NHL, whatever game that was that year, 2011, 2012. Was playing it, kind of sort of got into it, watched the Stanley Cup playoffs here and there, and I said to myself, like, you know what, whoever wins the Stanley Cup will be my team. And I forget, there was a team I was rooting for, I couldn't tell you who, and then I got to the Stanley Cup, and it was Vancouver and Boston. And I was like, well, I'm not cheering for a Canadian team. And I was already a Celtics fan at the time, so it made sense that I would also latch onto the Bruins. So it really was a perfect fit.
Yeah, well, could you imagine? I mean, no shade to the Canucks, but could you imagine being a Canucks fan the last 10 years of your life? That would be.
Well, I'm not cheering for a Canadian team. Like, I felt wrong. I love Alec Manoah. As I say on the podcast, he's the face of West Virginia baseball. Mm-hmm. And I like the Blue Jays. I really do. I can't root for a Canadian team to win, especially in our sport. Baseball's our sport.
I'll root for Manoah. I always will. I can't. When I read that he was the first WVU pitcher to start a playoff game, I was like,
that doesn't really surprise me.
I mean, it seems like you should have had someone by now, but
the more I think about it, I would have guessed maybe Jed Jerko, because he played for the Cardinals, and the Brewers were okay while he was there. I would have guessed him maybe, but I'm not that surprised that it's Manoah.
Yeah, well, we'll take him forever. He retire ceremony, whatever you got to do to honor him forever to keep him around. We'll do it.
My dad says all the time, I don't know how, and I agree, I don't know how we got that kid, and I don't really want to know Randy Basie. Because it's not like he's from West Virginia. He's from South Florida. He's from Miami.
Yeah, I was going to say. I thought he was a South Florida kid, so came up here to the cold to pitch in Morgantown.
I remember watching him as a freshman, and I thought he was all right. And then from there to my last year of grad school, where the dude was just dealing every night, going 9 innings, giving up one run just about every single Friday. It was awesome.
It was Mon County Ballpark. Let's not fool ourselves. That's what sold him.
You think?
No, but
I was about to say that's not like I don't think that's a pitching ballpark or anything. It's 400 to dead center.
No, and the ball moves so fast once it hits the ground. I would not want to pitch in there.
That's a fair. It is turf. That's a fair point. So I feel like we wanted. Was there something else we were going to talk about? I forget. I said save it for the pod.
I think it was the NASCAR playoffs.
It was not the NASCAR playoffs. Are you a NASCAR guy?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's right. No, we have talked about this.
Yeah, so I was a huge fan until 2004, 2005. Lost it for years. Pandemic comes back. It's the only sport on, and it's on 3 days a week. So
that's what a friend of mine, when sports weren't around, in 2020. NASCAR and UFC were the only thing going on. And I didn't get into it, but a good friend of mine really got into NASCAR in that 2020 year. And through my brother, I don't really follow it anymore, but that year we really got into UFC, and we had ESPN Plus, and through that you can watch a lot of old fights. And so every Saturday we would, I think it might have been free because of the pandemic, I don't remember, but we would watch, the card fights, and during the week he'd put on like Conor McGregor, and it was really fun. We'd order some Permane Brothers, which I miss dearly. Fantastic.
Yeah, if there are good things to come out of the pandemic, it's that we may have found other things to enjoy and love. I rekindled a love for an old sport. You found UFC for a short time. It kept us going when it was challenging.
No, the thing that I love, that I have picked up since the pandemic and have grown to love, is not sports related, but it is a hobby. It's reading. I love to read. It's, I don't like going to bed without reading like a couple pages of my book. It's actually better for you to read your book instead of looking at your phone.
Maybe that's why I'm worse off.
I can tell when I look at my phone it doesn't even have to be that long, but when I'm looking at my phone as compared to a book for 20 minutes, I can totally tell the next day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I might have to follow you in that one, because I like to read, but I'm guilty. I'm a phone person.
I was for a long time. It took a while to break the habit, honestly, and I'm still pretty bad at it. So let's go ahead and get started here. Let me pull up my predictions from this week. I should have tagged you in my post on Facebook, but
oh, it's okay. I'm old school.
Oh my!
I was ferociously writing notes before this because I had them all on my phone, and I was like, I don't want to keep going off and on.
So yeah, I meant to do this over the weekend, and you said, you were like, yeah, absolutely, and then I just never got back to it. And then I forgot on Sunday because there was football on. Monday I was too busy, and then today I was like, all right, because I actually thought opening night was tomorrow. I didn't know it was tonight.
Well, to be fair, you had a 9 a.m. or for you an 8 a.m. start.
Yeah.
On Sunday. I mean, you have to. It really throws you off when you're playing. When you're eating breakfast.
Tell you what, that game, it did not go my way, and I was pissed for about an hour. But that was really fun to watch. Because I've never seen Green Bay in London, and I watched the London games, but I'd never have a rooting interest. But that was really fun, I have to admit.
Oh yeah, it's fun. It's fun for one time. Like, I don't want to do it every year, but like if you do it every 4 years, I'm good.
Yeah, I agree.
Or in your case, once every 10.
So, I don't think it'll be once every 10 now that it's a 17-game season. That's something with Green Bay, and I actually did a project on it in grad school. Green Bay was the only team who had never played an international game. And, my theory was that it's because they're owned by the fans and they're so important to that city. Like, they're not going to give up a home game to go play overseas, not in front of their fans. And this year, now every other year, it's going to line up where they're going to have an extra home game so they can forfeit that and still have an 8-game revenue that they anticipate.
Right. Fans may not still like it.
Well, they actually do have a really good follow. I think they'll be willing to overlook it. Again, don't do it every other year, but every couple of years, every 5 years or something, that's fine. They actually have a huge following in the UK. I didn't know that.
I learned a lot about UK football over the last couple of weeks.
Why is that?
Just all the fans. Like, I didn't realize. I know it was big. You see all the fans there, but.
Is it that big? I mean,
you saw the Giants fans chanting about the. I was like, we have chants. Like, I thought. I mean, for soccer, absolutely, I get it. Like, that's their sport. That's what they live and die by. But they're in an American football game chanting to shove cheese.
Was it? Yes, it was. That was it. I thought we were talking about the same or thinking of the same thing. But yeah, Big Cat shared a video of these. I don't know if you call them Londonites, but. People from Britain cheering, shove your cheese up your ass.
Fantastic.
Not a very good British accent, but if I had more prep time, I would have been okay.
Yeah, we're good.
So
we prepared for hockey.
Yeah, so now it's hockey. Now we're talking Canada sport. What do you see when you look at the two conferences this year? Because I think one side's more deeper than the other, or deeper than the other.
Oh, 100%. It's the East.
Yeah.
The East is. I don't want to say the East is stacked, but like you said, Shane, it's much deeper.
It's deeper, but at the same time, it's kind of top heavy. Like the West is top heavy, but the East is deeper with good teams, but it's also a little top heavy because the bottom 8 teams aren't nearly as good as the top 8 to 10 teams. Bottom 6 aren't as good as the 8 to 10. Like nowhere close.
Sure. Well, but I'm looking at it. So I'm looking at the Central here. It's what I have in front of me. But and we'll talk about more individual teams, I'm sure. But looking at the Central, you're talking, or not the Central. I'm all messed up now.
Atlantic,
yeah. The Atlantic. Sorry, the Atlantic. That's what I'm looking at. So I'm looking at the Atlantic, and of course, Florida and Tampa Bay and Boston. I mean, we know that, but I have Detroit and Ottawa circled. They're not.
They got teams. A lot better. They did.
But
they're in a loaded division.
When you want to talk about deep, this is what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, like you just said. I actually do like Ottawa and Detroit. I think they have a chance to get 90 points, maybe sneak in the playoffs if they're fortunate. But I think Florida is going to, barring injuries, I think Florida's going to get 100 points. Toronto's going to get 100 points. Tampa's probably going to get 100 points. I think Boston has a chance, although that's less likely. I mean, those are 400 points. I think all 4 teams got 100 points last year.
Right. Well, and then you look at the kind of to your point, a couple points ago, you're talking about the worst teams are a little bit lower, and I don't think anyone's betting on Montreal.
No.
To do this, no one. I don't even have notes for Buffalo because that's just this is lost. They'll come back around, but the top 6 in the Atlantic. I mean, yeah, clearly Florida, Tampa Bay.
Someone has to be the odd man out. The most you can get is 5.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like what Detroit's doing.
Yeah.
Detroit is the team I have circled as kind of my sleeper overall in the NHL. I don't think it's because Ottawa certainly has good additions over the offseason. Getting DeBrincat, Giroux, Cam Talbot at goalie. I mean, he's going to be out with injury for a little bit. But I think I like Detroit because it's a younger core.
Yeah.
It's more guys that have played together. They have more experience. Again, Ottawa gets experienced players, but there's always that gel time. I don't know. I really like Detroit. I didn't think I would say that coming into this year or, watching them the last couple of years. There's something about them that I think really will shock people.
Well, is it Dylan Larkin? I mean, he's a stud. And they added some other good players. I mean, they were a laughingstock just a few years ago. Now I think that they have the opportunity to be in a playoff team. It's just going to be difficult in the Atlantic. But before we get into divisional talk, do you have any award predictions? Are you that kind of a fan?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, the sad thing is I feel like we could come on this, do this every single year for the next 5 to 7 years, and you would say, okay, who's the MVP? Connor McDavid? I mean,
I'm a Connor McDavid guy.
We really have to look past him. I mean, he's fantastic, and honestly, Leon Draisaitl too.
Yes.
You want to talk about top heavy? Let's talk about Edmonton Oilers. But point is we're in an era where we get to see great superstars. What the Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby of 5 to 10 years ago is what we're seeing with guys like Connor McDavid now. So to everybody who's casual, loyal, whatever NHL fan, enjoy Connor McDavid while he's still young and able to do amazing things.
Well, I mean, it's not like he's old. I doubt he's even 30.
No, he's not. And that's what's amazing is you are witnessing the prime of an all-time great. Enjoy it. And the sad thing is we don't have to look too far past it to give an MVP prediction because, well, every single year he could be your top choice.
Well, I'm trying to think who won it last year. Austin Matthews, America's Own. I had him originally because I thought McDavid won it. I was like, I'll go with Austin Matthews, and I found out Austin Matthews won it. I thought, all right, well, that gives me an excuse to put McDavid then.
We can't go back to back. We're not doing back to back.
No, and I don't like going back to back either. But McDavid, I mean, that's like picking Mike Trout to win AL MVP. I know he hasn't done it for a couple of years, but there was a stretch there where he won I think 3 out of 5 or 3 out of 4 years or something like that. And that's Connor McDavid. I think he's already won. It's called the Hart Memorial Trophy. But I have in parenthesis on my blog MVP for those that don't know. And then, but the other award that he's won quite a bit is the Art Ross Trophy, which goes to, it's not voting, it's whoever leads the league in points. And McDavid has won that award, I think, 4 of the last 6 years. I mean, he's gonna score 30 goals. He's gonna have 70 or 80 assists.
Well, and when you play with Leon Draisaitl on your top line, that helps too.
Yep.
I think guys that can challenge that though. I mean, look at Colorado. Yep. I mean, Nathan, if they stay healthy, that top line's fantastic with Nathan McKinnon.
And McKinnon has won the award before, I'm pretty sure.
Right. So I think when you're talking competition in that award, put those guys in there. I don't know if there's really anybody else who will challenge the points with the Art.
Oh, I don't. Maybe Draisaitl, but I think that's McDavid's to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're talking, I don't remember it offhand, but the goals. I mean, Austin Matthews very well could win that.
Didn't he score 60 goals last year or something like that? Yeah, it was absurd.
Before we got on here, I was on Twitter doing my phone, not reading, hurting my brain for long term, but it was a video of NHL players, and they said, who do you think will lead the league in goals? And I'm sure it's cut. I get it. We're all in media management. You can cut videos to do whatever you want, but so many top stars say Austin Matthews. Do we really believe it could be anybody else if all these guys who are in the game think it's going to be him?
Well, as much as we just sang his praise, I doubt it's going to be McDavid. That's not really his game. 30 goals is nothing to sneer at, but he's not going to get 50 goals. That's just not his game.
No. Well, when you tally 80 assists, 75 assists, you don't need it to be great.
No. McKinnon could. Mm-hmm. David Pastrnak could. Ovechkin still could. I doubt. I don't know about Crosby. Maybe again, he's kind of like McDavid.
I always worry with Crosby, especially now, injuries, because the core has all in Pittsburgh had different injuries over the last couple years. So I don't want to predict an injury because I don't want anyone to be injured across the league. It's tough to look past given the fact that, Crosby will be out for a couple weeks and then Malkin's out for a couple weeks. So stuff happens. One thing I will say that works in Crosby's favor this year, though, is, we still have a younger core of like Jake Getsel, Brian Rust that he's playing with. And if they put Ricard Raquel on his line, who really kind of came in and gave a jolt from Anaheim, it could put him up to 100 points. I don't think that wins a scoring title, but it certainly helps.
Yeah, you're going to have to get – I think one year McDavid had 130 points. I think. I don't know about that. But he's going to have to get over 100 to beat McDavid. And I'm just not sure Crosby is going to do that, but I wouldn't be shocked.
Not at 37.
Is he that old? I didn't know he was that old.
36 or 37. I don't remember exactly, but – I mean, the Penguins are the oldest team in the NHL. So
are they really? Wow.
So, 3 guys that have been there for 16 years, it doesn't really help your averages.
Who's the third? Letang, maybe?
The 3 of the core, Crosby, Letang, and Evgeny Malkin.
I got 2 out of the 3. Originally off the top of my head, so I guess I did get 3 out of 3. So let's do divisional breakdowns. Let's start in the East and specifically the Atlantic. We kind of already got into it, so we don't have to touch up on this too much, but who do you I think we're going to have the same, probably 4 teams competing for 3 spots. 3 guaranteed spots, that is. There's still a chance for a wild card.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Florida, the one thing that I put on my notes for both teams was the Matthew Tkachuk and Jonathan Huberdeau trade between Florida and Calgary. Mm-hmm. You remember a couple years ago, the one example I can always think of that really helped 2 guys out who were great players, but they needed a change of scenery, was the James Neal, Patrick Hornquist trade. 1 for 1, straight up, 2 good players, different games, but both of them thrived in their new environments. James Neal was great in Nashville. He was able to help them to the Stanley Cup, and Patrick Hornquist was the same for the Penguins. I don't know if this directly leads to Florida and Calgary playing in the Cup, but a change of scenery is always nice. So it certainly helps to get that. And I think Florida fans and probably Calgary fans alike were like, why? But sometimes it helps.
Yeah, I would argue. So Florida is the team I have winning this division. They had 122 points last year, around I think 57, 56 wins. I don't see them repeating that because that's historic, almost historic. But I would argue. I mean, they kept the bulk of their core. They added. I'm not gonna be able to pronounce his name.
Kachuk.
Kachuk. Okay.
Kachuk.
Don't pronounce the T. Kachuk. They add Kachuk. I still think they're going to be a really good team.
Oh, yeah. Well, like you said, the core is still intact, and familiarity matters. One thing that I think we talked about in our playoff preview last year was Sergei Bobrovsky.
Yeah.
You know, somebody who's back there who has a veteran presence in net certainly matters. But, you know, Aaron Ekblad, Barkov, captain, everyone's still there. A lot of that team's still there. And, you know, I have to give a shout out to my guy, Patrick Hornquist. He's still with Florida. I know I mentioned him just a minute ago. But, you know, you need guys like that. And I think they're a full team. And that really matters.
Right. The last two guaranteed spots, I'm going Toronto and Tampa. Toronto, younger team. I don't trust them in the playoffs, but I do trust them in the regular season. They're younger than Tampa. I feel like last year was, I don't want to say coming out party because it just ended in disappointment in the playoffs. But I feel like they really took a step forward last year. And I don't really expect them to take a step back. Tampa's still really good. I feel like their core is aging a little bit. They lost some, I don't want to say key players, but like nice role players on their roster because of cap issues. So I do think they regress a little. I think this starts their regression from, you know, being in the Stanley Cup 3 years in a row.
Well, I think one thing that hurts their, you know, kind of level playing field that they've been on is just how good other teams have gotten. And we'll talk about some of those as we go through this. But Tampa Bay still has its core intact.
Yeah.
The real top guys, Kucherov and, of course, Vasilevsky, who's always playing at a Venzia level. But I would agree with you on that. I think that Tampa Bay will have to start to take a step back at some point. Now, a step back for them may be
it'll still be playoffs.
Championship.
Yeah.
But that, you know, that matters in some sense because other teams are on the ascent, especially in the East.
Yeah. And then I think it's a 3-team race for the 4th and 5th spot, which at this point you're competing for a wild card. I think that's Boston, Ottawa, and Detroit. I mean, I went with my Boston Bruins. I'm pretty sure you would too.
Mm-hmm.
It was a frustrating offseason. I didn't agree with letting Bruce Cassidy go. I have a lot of respect for him. But they did bring back David Krejci. They brought in, what is his name, from the Devils? Pavel? What is his name? I'm going to screw it up.
It's okay. I don't have it in my notes, so I'm gonna leave this one to you.
Well, I want to get his name right because I got their backup goalie wrong. I remember that for our postseason preview a few months ago. I'll know it when I see it. Let me look here. Zacha. Pavel Zacha. That's what I'm thinking of. They add those two guys. They hire Jim Montgomery, who does have head coaching experience. Again, like you say, core's still intact. They brought back Patrice Bergeron too. Brad Marchand's still there. David Pastrnak. Although Marchand's going to be out for a while, and so is blue liner Charlie McAvoy. I think this team gets off slow, plays better as the season progresses.
Well, I mean, like I mentioned with the Penguins, any team who's affected by injuries, they're going to start slow, especially when it starts. Yeah. And I think that's just how it goes. You know, if you don't have all of your stars out there, it's going to be a rough couple weeks. But you get everybody back in, you get them gelling. Hockey really is a game of who gels at the right time.
Right.
You have to be the number 1 seed to make a deep run in the playoffs. And I'm not trying to say that Boston's going to win a Stanley Cup, but you get everybody back fully healthy, gelling around February, late January, anything can happen.
I thought last year was it for them because of Bergeron's contract situation. He's back, but only on a 1-year deal. I know David Pasternak's not happy with the way his contract negotiations have gone. So, again, this feels like this is it for Boston. Can they get over the hump? I'm not convinced that they can.
Do you think a question for you on that? Do you think that a new coach can bring a new life into that, though? Yeah, you're frustrated, you're upset, but does a new coach give a fresh perspective? I know that they're not necessarily the ones doing the deal, but it's somebody else who's in there who's different.
I would say yes. Most of the time, you don't really know. But, I mean, it happened a couple of years ago with Boston. They had Claude Julien, a coach who won them a Stanley Cup. They fired him mid-season. They promoted Bruce Cassidy, and they got hot and never really looked back, played for a Stanley Cup under him. Now I think the relationship got kind of stale, so they decided to move on. And through that, they were able to bring David Krejci back from Europe, who there was some kind of World Cup of hockey or something this summer. And from what I heard, Krejci looked really good playing for Czech Republic. So we'll see. But I don't really expect this team to be a whole lot better.
Well, I mean, you have stars like you mentioned, Pasternak, Marchand, Berg. I mean, there's a lot of star power there. Taylor Hall. You have guys that can certainly do it, but putting it together, getting through the injuries, new head coach, how does it all work? It can go one of two ways. It can be really good because everyone gels through him, or it's a breaking point.
Right. So I think we're in agreement. Those are our top four.
They are, but man, I still love Detroit. I don't know who I would bump, and that's the problem. I do love Detroit because of that young core, but I look at the top four and I say, who would I knock out? Honestly, of the four, it would probably be Boston, just because something would likely happen there. You know, we have injuries.
Maybe Marchand's out longer than they anticipated, and McAvoy. Maybe the new coach doesn't jive with the older players. Yeah, absolutely.
And injuries can happen to anybody, but I still am circling Detroit. Watch out for the Red Wings.
Yeah, so I would imagine we're going to have the same. I have Ottawa ahead of Detroit. I don't really remember why. I think I looked at Vegas's point totals for every team, estimated point totals, and I think Ottawa was higher, so I just put Ottawa ahead. Then followed by Detroit, although I think those are interchangeable, and then followed by Buffalo and Montreal to round out that division. So I would imagine
between the top six and Montreal and Buffalo.
Oh, there's a huge gap.
I mean, yeah, they're 7th and 8th, but they're actually like 9th and 10th. I don't know who's 7th.
Well, that's the other thing with I was thinking it earlier and forgot, but Ottawa and Detroit, yeah, you're going to have a shot finishing 5th to make the playoffs, but who from the Metropolitan are you going to bounce? The other division.
I mean,
like, let's pretend even you finish 4th.
Right. And
Boston disappoints and you finish 4th. You're in a better spot, but I think there are still teams in the Metro division that I like more than Ottawa and Detroit.
Well, I mean, maybe it's a natural right into the Metro, but I mean,
exactly.
The two teams that I can really guarantee in the Metro are the New York Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes. They're the two teams that I'm like, okay, I'm sold on both of these teams. They're good. They have everything is good. I could make arguments against the other ones.
Yes.
You know, Pittsburgh is certainly some of the greatest players of all time, but you're old. They're over 30 years old total.
Pittsburgh and Boston is about in the same boat.
And I just don't know what to expect because, you know, we have some younger guys, but we're still on our old court. It's tough. The Islanders, they kind of are up in the air. We saw them go all the way deep in the playoffs.
Yes.
But I also don't know who they are.
Yeah, I wrote on my blog, was 2 years ago a fluke? Or was last year the fluke? Which team is this closer to? Which version of this team are they closer to? I lean more toward 2 years ago. They do have good players. I think Barry Trotz is still their coach.
Actually, he's not.
He's not. Okay, that's why I said I think. I didn't think he was, but I don't remember anything. But I still think this is a good team. I have them over 90 points just on the outside looking in of the playoffs.
Well, the thing about New York that I think helps them is during the offseason, they didn't have a lot of changes.
Nope.
Very, very few changes of movement other than head coach. So that it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Boston situation. Can you come in and make them gel? What outside perspective can you give to these guys to help them gel? Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But familiarity, again, it matters. So when you have guys that have played together for umpteen number of games, it certainly helps your case.
So which team do you have winning the division?
I would give it to the Rangers.
Okay, so we differ here. I'm sticking with the Carolina Hurricanes. I really like their group. Very deep, talented, young roster. The problem is they lack star power, but that's only really going to hurt you, I think, in the playoffs, not so much in the regular season.
Right. Well, I think the other thing that I look at is if we get a repeat for the Rangers of Igor Shesterkin's last year, I mean, they're going to the Stanley Cup again. They're going to go back because
I have the Rangers, I think, third in this division. I do have Pittsburgh finishing ahead of them. That's more banking on the star talent there in Pittsburgh and so much experience. And the Rangers being a young, but they are ascending team.
Right. I mean, Kakko, Lafreniere, they have more star power than most teams. And I think that's what draws me to them is that they have a lot of star power. And if they get that same repeat from Shesterkin, I mean, you're talking Stanley Cup again.
Yep.
Guaranteed? No, but it's a great young core, and they're going to be fun to watch. Back to your first question, though, if you want to find a team that I'm going to bump now, I mean, you can say, oh, you're a Penguins fan. Of course you'd say that. I said Pittsburgh, and I'll say Washington, too. I think we're out of the age of Pittsburgh and Washington dominating this division and moving to one where we differ on the Rangers or Hurricanes winning it.
I completely agree there. I have Washington finishing fourth. I'm curious to know where you have them.
I would probably put them fifth. I think the Islanders can edge them out as far as the top four. Now, one thing I will say, I have a lot of respect for Alex Ovechkin. Anybody who watches the game does. He's about to become the third player all time with 800 goals. And all the articles you read, it says, well, he's 20 goals away. He'll have that before January, the way that words goes. I'm not worried about him getting to 800 goals. So if nothing else for the Capitals, just watch Ovechkin post up in the top of the circle, hit a couple slap shots, watch history.
Yeah, I think in the East, I have every single team returning to the playoffs that made the playoffs last year. I know that is statistically likely not going to happen, but I went with it anyway. There are question marks with the Islanders. There are question marks with Ottawa and Detroit, and those I would say are probably the top three teams. New Jersey's not far behind them. A lot of question marks. And, with Washington, Ovechkin's still really good. Backstrom's still good. TJ Oshie's still there. Their core is still there, but it is aging.
It suffers from the same thing Pittsburgh does. It's the aging core that you wonder how much longer it can survive.
Difference with them is that Washington hasn't been out of – well, honestly, Pittsburgh really hasn't either. Washington hasn't won a playoff series since the Stanley Cup, I'm pretty sure, in 2018. Of course, I don't think Pittsburgh has won a series either since about 2019 or 2020.
So the year the Caps won, Pittsburgh went to the second round because Washington beat them.
Yeah.
They've not been out of the first round since.
Wow, that's hard to believe.
Now, one other fun thing in the Metro, if you like chaos, John Tortorella is coaching the Flyers.
That's going to be interesting.
Match made in heaven, folks. The city of Philadelphia and John Tortorella, that's going to be fun.
Problem is, I have Philadelphia finishing last, but, I mean, they could finish higher than that, but I don't see them finishing higher than maybe fifth or sixth.
Well, but see, the other team that we're not talking about here is Columbus. Now, the odd thing about Columbus is they have the star power at the top. If they can get Patrick Laine going, and of course they signed Johnny Gaudreau in the offseason, but do they have the depth? And I think that's what we find in the NHL every single year that we talk about it. You can have all the top stars. You can have that best first line. It doesn't matter if you can't depth score and your goaltending's not there.
Yeah. Columbus, interesting team, like you said, adding Johnny Gaudreau. Is it Gaudreau?
Sure.
No idea. I mean, it's spelled Gau and then Drew, but I always thought it was
I have a
Gaudreau.
phonetic spelling of Kaprizov here for Minnesota because I was like, I don't want to mess that one up.
Let's go. I'll go with Gaudreau then. But that was a weird signing in the offseason. I remember that because Columbus wasn't that good last year. Tortorella might have already left the team by the offseason, but I was like, why is he going there? Just didn't make a whole lot of sense. But that's a signing that might help you win or get to 90 points and maybe sneak in the playoffs.
When I think people said the same thing about Patrick Laine whenever he left Winnipeg to come to Columbus or was traded. But again, you can have stars. How much difference does it make, though, if your other guys around you aren't great?
Yeah.
Because you can only play to the level of how great your players are. So, that's one thing I will say about the Penguins and Alex Ovechkin, you guys like that. They elevate talent around them. Are Laine and Gaudreau going to do that?
So, who is your 1 through 4 then?
I would give it to New York.
That's right. You did say New York.
The Rangers number 1. Carolina would be my number 2. I'm gonna put Pittsburgh at 3, and then I would put the Islanders at 4.
Okay.
With really the Islanders and Pittsburgh being interchangeable.
So then I would imagine Caps 5, probably Devils 6, Blue Jackets and Flyers.
Yeah, I may even move the Blue Jackets up to the 5 or 6 spot, depending. I really think Washington's a better team. I think Washington is number 5 really convincingly, but you could also convince me that Columbus would be. I think Washington's 5. I would say Columbus 6, New Jersey 7, and Philly. That Philly with John Tortorella is going to be a train wreck, and I cannot wait for the comedy that comes out of that.
I don't know how much of a hockey town Philadelphia is, but that is going to be really interesting because how many times has John Tortorella been fired?
I mean, I want to know how many times he's been fined for talking about the refs. And
that too.
So it's either going to be a match made in heaven where Philly falls in love with him because he's absolutely insane, or they're going to absolutely hate him because he's so hard on his players, and that's already kind of reared its ugly hand. We'll see. We'll see.
What a difference just a couple years make. The Flyers just during the pandemic had the number 1 overall seed in the playoffs. Granted, I know it was the pandemic. They had a break for a few months, and it was a round robin, and Philly just came out on top and got the number 1 overall seed. But weren't they not in the Eastern Conference Finals of that weird bubble?
Yeah, they were top. Well, they suffered from losing a lot of their guys. I mean, Claude Giroux left. They trade him. Many others. And honestly, the other big factor for them is Carter Hart hasn't been what we thought he would be.
Yep.
We heard a lot about him coming out. Next stud, he's really going to be the netminder for them. This past year wasn't great for him. Very up and down. So if you get what we think Carter Hart can be, Philly will be better. But that core is not there anymore. Those guys made them great aren't there. So it'll be a rebuilding year and a fun one. I'm still on the John Tour. I love it. I can't wait for that.
So I think our only difference, I assume you have the Islanders as one of the wild card spots?
Yeah, so I would put the Islanders in as a wild card only because of, what I talk about, familiarity. They're a team that's been there, and if they play up to what we think they can be, like you mentioned, if they're the 2 years ago Islanders team of not many changes and solid play all around, there's really not even one spot that I say this is where they succeed. They're good everywhere.
Yeah,
that matters more than a rising core. I'm still in on Detroit, but I think that's maybe 2 to 3 years off before we can talk about them as a legitimate contender.
I think it's going to be whenever Boston's core hangs it up. Bergeron leaves, maybe they trade Marchand. Pasternak leaves in free agency. I don't know, but they need like a Boston to lose its core and drop, and then Detroit can enter one of those top 4 spots and get in the playoff conversation. So let's go ahead and shift to the West, where, as we said, not as deep. The Central Division, though, is the deeper of the 2 divisions.
Yeah. I still like the East better.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it's tough because I really do like the Central has good, and it's more top heavy because obviously Colorado. I mean, we're Stanley Cup champions. Not a ton of changes that I think greatly affect them. Losing Darcy Kemper hurts and Kadri hurts, but
those are guys you can afford to lose.
Most of the guys that are making a difference and really are Colorado are still there.
Your core is McKinnon, Landeskog. Is it Maker?
Yeah, I think it's
Makar. I thought I had one more, but those three guys, that's your core.
Probably Rantanen.
Yeah, that was who I had. Yeah, Rantanen.
Yeah, those guys are, I don't want to say they're irreplaceable, but when you're talking about losing people, you can replace Kadris, you can replace Kempers. Those guys, I mean, Nathan McKinnon, you want to talk about a guy who's, you're watching. We talked earlier about McDavid. You're watching in your prime, enjoy it while he's young to see the great plays. Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar probably fall in that same category.
They also signed, I'm trying to think of who the goalie was, but one of their biggest problems last year, which is funny to say that because they won the Stanley Cup, but they basically had an open net, it felt like, the entire Stanley Cup playoffs. How many times did they win games like 7-5 or 8-6? It was quite a few times.
It's interesting because normally that strategy doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have to have a goalie who can at least give up 2 and your team scores 3. You have to be able to temper it a little bit. But it goes back to how good this core is. With Nathan McKinnon and Rantis and Landeskog, they score. That's what they do. They are a scoring team. So it works. I guess it works out a little better when you have high scorers because you can get in shootouts. Well, not shootouts, but the football version of a shootout.
I was trying to find the goalie. I could be wrong that they signed. But it was just, like one of those journeyman goalies that's just kind of been around. And I was like, well, I mean, that's probably better than who they had last year.
I had an article pulled up. Let me see if I can find it here. Hockey. I'll find it. But we can keep going. We'll find it.
I'm looking at the roster right now. Hang on. Maybe it was Georgiev?
Yeah, that's it.
I think that's who it was.
Yep, that's who it is.
So they improved there, and I would say that was their biggest weakness last year. So again, Colorado's really good. That was a team that I've been banking on for a long time and had them circled. Like I had them in the Stanley Cup final, I think, for a couple of years in a row there in the preseason or in my postseason predictions, and they always seem to let me down. And then, sure enough, the minute I give up on them, they go and win it all.
Right. Well, does that mean Toronto's going to win it this year?
No.
Oh, right.
No, because Toronto can't get past the first round.
You need to win 4 rounds to win this.
Like Colorado could at least get to, I think, the second round the last couple of years.
Right. Well, but I think too that they're still the preseason favorite.
Oh, for sure.
It's easy to say when you're coming off a Stanley Cup, you don't really lose a lot of guys. But like you said, the guys that they lost, more replaceable. I don't really see as many weaknesses with them as I do some of the other teams that I would label as contenders.
We'll get into it here in a bit. I just don't know which team really comes close to Colorado in the West.
I think the closest one is Minnesota.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get into that. We're staying in the same division. I have Minnesota finishing second. Unlike previous Minnesota teams, this team can actually score, and they always have a good blue line. They're always pretty sharp defensively, at least the last couple of years, but now they can finally score. Problem is you're in the same division as Colorado, so you have to meet them in the playoffs in order to make a deep run.
Right. Well, the one scorer that they lost that'll hurt him is Kevin Fiala. He's got left, so that will hurt a little bit. But Kaprizov and they're an up and comer.
Yeah.
They're one of the teams that's kind of built up, and you're like, oh wait, Minnesota's second in the Central now. Yeah, Minnesota's second in the Central now. And, it helps to have a guy back there that's a veteran. Of course, Marc-Andre Fleury still somehow is playing at a relatively great
Which is
level.
weird. I feel like I mean, he went to Vegas and helped them, go to the Stanley Cup once, and I think almost get there a second time in 2021. Then did they trade him to Chicago, or did he go to Chicago? That was a whole weird situation. And then he gets traded from there, I think, to Minnesota.
Fully remember the Chicago. I know he was released from Vegas. There was some tension. Wasn't really sure. Goes to Chicago. Nah, I don't want to play for a bad team. Gets sent to Minnesota.
Yeah. So now they have him. He didn't play horribly last year with Minnesota, from what I can recall. So Minnesota's definitely an interesting team this year. But again, you're in a tough division right now. Another team that I like, not just because I used to live there, Nashville. Matt Duchene. They, like Minnesota, they always have a good blue line. They have a really good goalie, and Saros. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his first name. It's Juuse. My pick to win the Vezina this year. I would imagine like UC maybe.
Yeah,
Saros.
sounds right.
A J with the name Saros. He's probably from Scandinavia, which they do a soft J there. 2 U's.
Can we just, before we move on, can we give our appreciation to hockey announcers?
Yeah.
Because the amount of phonetic spellings that you have to do when I was doing my other podcast, I thought it was ridiculous that I had to say Weongalale for Clemson. Like I was
Yui, I still can't get his name.
I had letters. Like it was beyond a phonetic spelling. I cannot imagine what it would be like to be a hockey announcer.
I had someone tweet the other day, where does the N come from in Uiagalelei? It's there somewhere.
It's made up. I've always said I want to call somebody. You know how like you have to call support somewhere and you like give them the code or whatever, and they're like, okay. I always want to do it's a P as in pterodactyl, just to really throw them for a loop. But,
K as in knife.
That's just rude. Like, back to hockey.
No, but for hockey, the thing with hockey announcers is that like it's names that you're not familiar with. Like at least for baseball, there's a lot of international players in baseball. But we're right next to a lot of Latin America countries where they speak Spanish. We're familiar with Ramirez, Gonzalez, and names like that. But, like, I'm trying to think of some of these other names here. Like I just said, Saros, I mean, that's pretty simple. But Kachuk, I mean, and then I don't even want to get into all the Scandinavian names. There's a player for Boston I know whose name is, like, Vikinen.
Mm-hmm. I always love the names. That's one of my favorite parts about hockey because it's aggressive. You get some of those fun names, and those are the guys I can really.
Oh, who was it for New York? Zibanejad.
Yeah, Zibanejad. I love. He's a fun player too.
He is. Yeah.
Who's going to help his team, but I love the name like Rasmussen. Like it really gets me going whenever I hear Rasmussen. Like
that just sounds like a Hall of Famer.
It's great. That's fun about hockey. Hockey names are fun.
So what do you think about Nashville, real quick?
Well, I think Nashville kind of has that same disease of, we don't really know who they are, but they have a solid core. Look, when you have Roman Josi back on your blue line, you're going to score, you're going to get solid play. That really it's not going to shock anybody. I think what you have to see, though, to make Nashville successful, though, is Matt Duchene last year was kind of like, I'm going to have the best season of my career. Can he do it?
Yeah.
If he can repeat that, I think Nashville has a legitimate chance. And I think the Central really gets weaker as you move down. But I think with, Minnesota, Colorado being up top, we'll talk about St. Louis in a minute. And, of course, Dallas is kind of borderline.
Yep.
There's spots to be had there, and I think Nashville can earn one of them, especially one of the top 4.
Philip Forsberg, another good player for Nashville. They also added, talk about hockey names, Nino Niederreiter.
That one, I love that one too.
Oh my God, that name drives me. So for it was last year and the 2 years before during COVID, Boston played Carolina, and when they went to the Stanley Cup in 2019, they met Carolina in the playoffs. And I feel like I heard Niederreiter's name so many times. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? And I'm like, what's his name?
I wonder what the budget for letters on the back of uniforms is. Because, it's not everyone is Jones.
Right.
So, Niederreiter's a lot.
Oh, another one that I love, and we'll get to him here in a bit, but he plays for Winnipeg. and American somehow with his last name, but we'll talk about him here in a bit. But yeah, outside of Colorado, Minnesota, I feel like it's a 3-team race, maybe 4 with Winnipeg, Nashville, Dallas, St. Louis, and Winnipeg here competing for really 2 spots.
I like St. Louis because I think St. Louis has some of that group, but they kind of have the same goaltending issue. We don't know which Jordan Binnington we're going to get. If we get the Jordan Binnington of the Stanley Cup run, absolutely. Yeah. We're talking about a team that could maybe even finish second if he's real.
They have their roster has kind of been chipped away though. I mean, Tarasenko I think is still there, but they've lost David Perrin, they've lost Pietrangelo. There was another player I thought that they lost. Oh, it was their goalie who helped turn their season around last year. Let me see if I can see his name here.
I mean,
Husso.
Yeah, we're kind of to the point now with like Ryan O'Reilly and Tarasenko that this is probably it.
Yeah,
this is a do or die for them, and unfortunately, it's probably going to be die because you're in a division where you have to look up to Minnesota, who I think is the second best, and Colorado.
Yeah, I think Nashville's a better team than St. Louis. It's close with Dallas, but Dallas has a really good, defense. They did lose John Klingberg, but they added Nils Lundqvist and Mason Marshman, and they already had a pretty good core of Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn, I think. I think there's a Radulov. Is that a guy that they have? Alexander Radulov, I think.
You could say anything.
I
would believe.
I'm almost certain he's a player for the Dallas Stars, and he was a damn good player.
Yeah, well, and Dallas has tasted that success too.
Yes, Alexander Radulov.
Yeah, Dallas has tasted that success recently too. So they know what it's like, even in a crazy pandemic year. They know what it's like to get there. I'm a firm believer in that experience matters for something.
He used to be way better. He's not that good anymore.
Well, so is Mitch Trubisky, but that's
I wondered how long it would take before we start making Steelers jokes.
Well, I mean, Will Anderson, here we come, baby. We're looking for number 1. So, but I think that success matters, and I think that's another reason that I still have a little bit of faith in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Because although the roster turnover is certainly, you can't deny it, they still have guys that know how to get there. Mm-hmm. And if you have some of those guys still intact, some of them, it can build you up to at least a playoff spot. And
they're just they're a well-run organization. I mean, I don't like them, and I don't like Craig Berube, but he's a Stanley Cup winning head coach. So yeah, they have what it takes. It gave me a lot of joy to leave them out of my playoff picture. I have them finishing 5th, and I put Dallas ahead of them. But we don't need to get into reasons why I don't like St. Louis.
Well, and then, one thing that's sad is that we're not even talking about Chicago.
Yeah.
A team that still has Patrick Kane and John.
I was just about to say, is Patrick Kane still alive?
We're talking about 2 great players that we've seen play over the past 10 seasons. And we don't even consider them for what could be. I don't think they'll finish last. I think Arizona finish last because they're going to play on frozen puddles in Arizona, which is ridiculous because they don't have an arena. But we should be talking more about Chicago and kind of I hate to call it a fall from grace because Taves and Kane are still very much solid players, but
Nashville ruined them. That sweep in 2017 ruined them.
Yeah, it's over in Chicago.
I mean, they weren't a very good team last year. They really kind of stripped their roster dating back to last season and this offseason. I don't expect them to be much better. If Arizona wasn't in this division, they'd probably finish last.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Arizona's going to be trying to find.
Arizona's bad.
I mean, this is a team that does not understand an arena. Like, they don't have an arena contract.
And that's such a shame. I don't think Phoenix is a bad sports town. They support the Suns. They support, I think, the Diamondbacks a little bit. They love the Cardinals. Hockey in the desert doesn't really make sense. But it works with Vegas. Granted, Vegas, that's kind of brand new, and that was like their first professional team, I think, ever in any sport, or at least one that mattered. That's a little bit different, but I refuse to believe that Phoenix won't show up for hockey. I know that I'm more of an optimistic fan.
Send him back to give him the Nordiques back.
Yeah.
The Nordiques back. Give Atlanta their team back. Bring back
No. Atlanta's had 2 teams. You don't get a third. No. Like once, okay, fine. Once, bad luck. Fans just didn't care that much. You had bad ownership, whatever. Twice though, no. It's the city. It's you. You're done. Although I want to see an East Coast team move to the West and put Nashville in the East, which makes too much damn sense.
Nashville would be fun in the East.
Well, just Nashville's east of the Mississippi. Well, yeah. so is Chicago, but Chicago's west enough. Like Nashville's literally in the southeast.
Yeah, it still messes me. My gauge of what's west and what's east is very different than. But I mean, Nebraska doesn't have a hockey team, so I really, whatever. I just accept what the NHL gives me and say, okay, Chicago's west and so is Nashville. Sure.
Well, Detroit was in the west for a while until they changed the divisions. So we've talked about just about everyone. I want to say his name though real quick. Winnipeg, as long as you have Connor Hellebuyck, you're going to have a shot to win some games.
Yeah. Well, and he's, we were talking about a top goalie not that long ago. Maybe. I don't have him in my playoffs. I don't have him in my.
Oh, no, I don't either, but they're going to have a chance with him in the net. But
yeah,
just try to believe someone with the name of Hellebuyck is American. I would have sworn somewhere else. He was from somewhere else.
Well, you wouldn't believe either, but,
What's that?
You wouldn't believe my last name's American either, because it's not.
Well, I mean, no name is really American.
True.
But I would not have guessed with his last name he would be. Plus,
absolutely.
I don't want to play that card, but have you seen the man? It's also not someone I would expect to have that last name.
Fair.
I don't want to go down that road. This podcast doesn't get any viewership, but I don't want to go down that road. Nobody would know, but all right, so Pacific Division. I think this is a 2-team race. What about you? Same province.
Why can I not read my notes here? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, Calgary, Edmonton, they're my top 2. Yeah. I feel like everybody probably feels the same way. Calgary will be interesting because I think Calgary did more to support themselves heading into the season. We already talked about the Tkachuk and Huberdeau trade. So there's that, but also too adding in or losing Gaudreau hurts, but Huberdeau, Kadri, Weegar, they made some offseason additions.
Yeah.
Okay. It hurts to lose your top player like Gaudreau, Tkachuk, but then you look at what you bring in and you go, okay, I see what you're trying to do.
That's spreading money around for sure. Like you're not paying two guys the most money.
Right, but then we look at Edmonton and we say the exact opposite. We're like Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid could take anybody to the promised land. So what does it matter? So I like Calgary for depth, but are you really going to overlook Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl? They're 2 guaranteed playoff spots.
Yeah,
it's really the idea of 1 and 2 at this point.
I picked Edmonton to win this division to be a little different, because I had picked 3 teams that won their divisions last year in Florida, Carolina, and Colorado. So I wanted to be a little different here. I picked Edmonton, best player in hockey. Leon Draisaitl is maybe a top 5 player in hockey. Yeah. Depth is a concern. They've made strides defensively. I still think they're a really good team, and I think Calgary regressed a little bit by losing Gaudreau, and it might take some time for these new guys to gel.
Yeah, well, and we said that with I can't remember who it was in the East, Ottawa. We said the same thing with Ottawa. You bring in new guys, and where does that chemistry come from? I think that hurts them a little bit, but I still think that it's not major changes. I don't know if you're dealing with as big of egos, because I think that matters too when talking with these guys. I mean, I don't know any of these guys. I don't know how big their egos are, but we're not talking about as big of stars trying to gel, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But the other thing that's interesting about Edmonton is, to corral their goaltending concerns, they're trusting in Jack Campbell, who Toronto fans look away. Do we trust him?
They're not a great defensive team. All I said was they made strides. They have made strides on that end of the ice.
Again, it helps to play in the Pacific because it's so bad.
Yes.
You still can have some of these concerns, and you're like, we don't really have to be great.
No. It's going to be a problem when you play Calgary in the playoffs, or Colorado in the playoffs, or Minnesota in the playoffs. But yeah, I think those are the top two teams. I think it's probably a 2-team race, maybe 3 for the last guaranteed spot, but I'm giving it to Vegas. I don't know what happened last year. Total collapse at the end of the season. They hired Bruce Cassidy. This is a roster that's already good, has playoff experience. Again, not sure what happened. They bring in Bruce Cassidy, who has playoff experience. I think this is going to rejuvenate them a little bit.
I don't know. I feel like, and maybe this is wrong because they're still so new, but like, I still judge Vegas on that first season. Like, that first season, to me, I'm like, if they can't match that, which is unfair.
Yeah.
Because that will never be done again. An
Probably
expansion
not.
and is a game away from the Stanley Cup. We'll never see that again. But I still judge them. I'm like, well, if they're not that good, then what are they?
Well, and the thing is, the years after, they've been really good. I think in their existence, last year was the first time they missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know what happened. They have a talented roster, though. They can win. Just didn't work last year. I don't know. Maybe injuries or just what.
Well, and one of the things that will help them if he's back and healthy and stays the course. Jack Eichel was there for a full season. So that certainly matters too. I mean, that's a team that's had a lot of roster turnover. We know that, but I think that Jack Eichel matters. I think when he's playing his best, he's probably a top 10, 15 player in hockey. So there's no reason to believe that he can't score and help that team and propel that team forward, especially in a bad division.
Yeah, I agree. So we agree on top 3, probably?
Yeah,
because I'll be honest, I really like what the Kings are doing. I have them at, what'd you say? I didn't catch it.
I said this division's sad.
It is a bad division. But I will say, I do really like what the Kings are building. I don't think Vancouver is terrible either.
No, I would actually give Vancouver the nod over what LA is doing. LA kind of in that same Detroit realm for me. Like you said, like what they're doing, I just don't think they're there yet.
Well, the reason why I'm high on them, they snuck into the playoffs last year. No one gave them a shot. And I believe they went 7 games against Connor McDavid and Edmonton.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, that goes back to the argument of if you get hot at the right time and you play good hockey, anything can happen. The year that Nashville beat Chicago, it completely broke Chicago, and we're still talking about Nashville as a competitive.
Right. You're right. It could be a scenario where the Kings just got hot at the right time, favorable matchup, but they are a really young team, and maybe they just regress a little bit, take a little bit of a step back because they're not there yet. But they add Kevin Fiala from Minnesota to help add some veteran leadership to the clubhouse, or to the locker room, I should say. But I still like what the Kings are doing. Vancouver's a team, like I've said, like I wouldn't be shocked if they make the playoffs, but they always they're never in the playoffs. They always kind of hover around the, just on the outside looking in.
Yeah, well, and I think that's where the race is going to be. I really think it's a 3-team race for that last spot. I think Vegas is probably a little bit better, but I'm really putting Vegas, Vancouver, and LA in that same kind of realm. I really think they're the teams that, they're, again, it's a product of a bad division. I hate to keep coming back to that, but, when we're talking about three teams that would be maybe seventh in one of the divisions in the East,
right.
I mean, that's...
No, I said that on my blog. I said there are teams in the East that I think would make the playoffs in the West. And then on the other side, there are teams in the West that are going to make the playoffs that I don't think would in the East.
No, I don't either. Now, one other team that I will say, they fall in that same LA category that I say I like what they're building, but they're not there yet, is Anaheim.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing.
They are not. I'm not ready to put them in a playoff conversation. I still think that they'll be under that cut line this year. But when we do this in 2-3 more years, we'll be talking about Anaheim as 4-3, something along those lines. Given that Edmonton doesn't fall off or Calgary doesn't fall off, but they're just not there yet.
No, really young core. They added some good veterans. Let me see if I can pull them up real quick. Klingberg from Dallas, Ryan Strong, Frank Vetrano, just some really nice pieces. Really young team. I have Mason McTavish winning the Rookie of the Year award, whatever that is actually called. The Calder, is it Calder Memorial?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Calder Memorial Trophy. You're nodding along, and I think, okay, I got it right. Then
it is the Calder.
Okay, it is the Calder. So yeah, I like Anaheim. Don't think they're there yet. I think Seattle's going to be better, especially if, what's the goalie's name? Grubauer, yes. If he can play like he was in Colorado, I think they're going to have a chance to win, maybe 40 games.
Yeah. Seattle.
Which, by the way, I still love having a hockey team in Seattle. Like, that really excites me.
The Kraken at that?
Yes.
I mean, maybe best nickname in hockey? I don't know.
When they announced that name, my parents, it came up on the ticker, because that was during COVID. That came up on the ticker. My parents were like, what's a Kraken? And I was like, oh, my God. I was like, Kraken. They were like, what the hell is that? And I had to explain it to them. And they're like, that's a dumb name. And I said, no. This is the wrong, y'all have the wrong opinion. I'm sorry. Now, maybe it should be Krakens, but.
Yeah, I mean, that's always a fun trivia question, though. Teams that don't end in an S. Thunder, Jazz,
In hockey, since we're talking hockey. I'm looking at the Pacific right now. It's only the Kraken. Then outside of that, I think it's just the Wild. No, Lightning. 3 teams. Avalanche, yeah, 4. That was just off the top of my head. I could have got that.
Yeah, I love that trivia question. That's a fun one.
Yeah, I had someone do that to me when I was in high school. They're like, name 5. It was like college teams that don't have an S at the end. And I think I was like, NC State, Alabama, Harvard. I thought of Harvard. I couldn't tell you who else I said. I can think of more, though.
Right. Love it. I love fun trivia.
Well, that's just interesting. You don't hear that very often. I think the most is probably in the NBA with the Magic and Thunder, and those are just two. Jazz, yeah. I think the most is in basketball. But we're going back to hockey. Seattle, what do you think?
I just don't think they're there yet.
No, they're not.
I think that the other thing I talked about judging Vegas against their first season, we're not going to get many more expansion teams, but I'm also very guilty of judging Seattle against Vegas. I'm like, they suck.
Well, I was the other way around. Last year with Seattle, I said, I think they can be like Vegas and sneak into the playoffs. Way off on that one.
But it's easy to be guilty of that because you see it work and you're like, okay, like, interesting. You would never think of an expansion team. I mean, think back to the last expansion teams in each sport. You wouldn't think ever that the Texans would have been great their first season in the NFL. You would never think that. But when you see it in hockey, you're like, okay, wait a minute. Like, this is really cool.
And that is especially to be the case in, like, baseball. Like, I don't know how baseball, or really football for that matter, do their expansion drafts, but I can't imagine a baseball, like, pretend that baseball expanded to Nashville. Like, do you really think they're going to get a Jacob DeGrom on the mound and, a really good hitter, a couple really good hitters? No. And then the people that they draft aren't going to be ready for 2 to 3 years.
Well, and here's the other thing that I think helped Vegas, and I might be biased in this respect, but the Penguins gave them the perfect opportunity with a guy that was a leader in Marc-Andre Fleury. Seattle didn't quite have that same opportunity. They didn't have the same guys in that regard.
Do you even remember who the first player they took was?
Wasn't it? I know one of them was off the sign from the Penguins. Like, he came from the Penguins and off. It might have been Jared McCann. I don't think he was expansion. But they saw. I can't remember who their first player was. It was
a former Boston Bruin. It was Jeremy Lauzon.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a huge difference between Marc-Andre Fleury and Jeremy Lauzon.
Yeah, there was just something about that draft that when you looked at that roster, you're like, well, because they got James Neal in that draft too. I mean, of course, James Neal not the same of the mid 2010s, but
you're with there was another player that Vegas got that year who really Carlson, who really hadn't done anything in Columbus, and then he goes to Vegas and breaks out.
So how does Vegas just get so lucky to have teams that are in these casualty situations where they're like, well, we have so many good players that we can't protect them all. So I don't know, but that's to the point. That's not Seattle.
No.
Grubauer will help them.
Yeah.
Now, having Martin Jones as backup, that matters too, because he's an experienced veteran, but certainly on the decline from San Jose the last few years. I don't know. Can Seattle sneak in? Maybe. The Pacific is not great. Honestly, I think there's more parity in the Pacific, and you could pretty much sell me on anybody but San Jose making it.
Yeah, San Jose is not going to get there. Do I have the right player now that I think about it? Not Carlson. Was it Carlson?
William Carlson.
Was there a William Carlson?
I believe so, because Eric Carlson is...
No, it wasn't Eric.
Because he's San Jose.
William Carlson, yeah.
Yeah.
He's still with it. I don't think they showed him on the roster, but yeah, still with Vegas. Okay. I thought maybe I was thinking of Marchessault was another player, but I don't think it was him.
Was it in their first year that they had Max Pacioretty too, did they not?
I think he came after.
Was he after?
I think he was after Pacioretty.
Okay.
Who is now in Carolina.
Carolina. Will be injured, but to start the season, but still veteran.
Carlson. It still says that he's in Vegas, so I don't know. He didn't show up on the roster though. Maybe he's hurt. Yeah, San Jose. They really lack dynamic players outside of Eric Carlson.
I wrote next to their notes, I have sad.
And what's funny is I picked them to go to the Stanley Cup, maybe win the Stanley Cup, but definitely make it just a year or two ago. And I was way off because I think they finished last.
Yeah.
And then that was the year they traded away everybody.
You were not the only one though.
Right.
That's the thing is you. It's not like you look at it and go, man, I was way off. Everyone was off.
Right.
That was a downfall.
Yeah, that was a bad year. All right, so Stanley Cup final predictions. Do you have one, sir?
I want to put Colorado back in there from the West. We talked about it when we did our preview last year. I really do hate doing repeats.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm also not blind to the fact that
you're going to do Tampa, aren't you?
In the West, no, I'm actually not. I'm actually not going to go with Tampa. I'm not blind to the fact that Colorado is still the best team in the West.
Yeah, so I mentioned it earlier, and I said we'd get to it, and this is where it's coming. What team stacks up with Colorado in the West? I think between Colorado and Minnesota and Edmonton and Calgary, it's quite a drop-off.
Yeah, it really is. And and that's why I say I would be shocked if it is not Colorado from the West.
I have Colorado, and I don't have them winning it all, but I do have Colorado winning the West and getting to the Stanley Cup again. I gotta see it from Colorado. I was to the point with them. I gotta see it. I gotta see it from Minnesota. I gotta see it from Edmonton, and I gotta see it from Calgary. Now I will say I picked Calgary to go to the Stanley Cup last year. They lost in the second round. Edmonton, funny enough, another team I'd given up on, met Colorado in the Western Conference Finals, and I think that went 5 or 6 games. I don't remember. It really wasn't that close. But I was like, sure enough, like I give up on both Colorado and Edmonton, and here they are with a chance to go to the Stanley Cup.
Why is it we just give up on all the Canadian teams? Toronto and Edmonton and...
I'm not. I will always say, like, I got to see it from Toronto first.
Yeah. When Toronto... Let me know when Toronto makes it the second round.
I went last year in the playoffs. I follow a guy, a podcast, John Campia, who talks a lot about movies and TV shows, the entertainment industry. And he's Canadian, and he was bragging about how the Leafs were up 3-2 in the first round against Tampa. And I was like, oh, buddy, I would not be – I would – and he, to be fair, he was like, I'm a little nervous, you know.
Hey, you should be.
Being a Leafs, he was like, as a Leafs fan, I'm a little nervous, but they are up 3-2. And I was like, oh, buddy, you just jinxed it. And sure enough, they went on to lose.
For all you football fans out there, it's like being a Bears fan and saying, we found our franchise quarterback.
Or being a Packers fan thinking this is your year. Nah, I gave up on that in January. So, East. What team you got from the East?
So, I don't want to do this either, so I'm going to coin flip it and I'll give you one. But I think the winner of the East... Toronto. Absolutely not. I'll tell you what. I'll make you a deal. If we do this again before the playoffs, if Toronto makes the second round, we'll do an emergency episode.
1,000%. I say absolutely, and we'll apologize.
I'll sing their praises and stuff, but I'll say it's a personality trait at this point to just be like, absolutely not. They're not making it.
I'll tell you what. If Toronto makes it past the first round, I will come on this show and sing "Oh Canada." I'm willing to make that. Just get past the first round and I'll do it.
I don't even need to be a part of that. I just can't wait to see it. Okay, you have actually turned me into wanting to root for Toronto now. So.
Because you know how much of an American I am. I love this country. Very few people love this country more than I do. And I make fun of Canadians all the time.
Except James.
No, I made fun of James quite a bit.
One of our grad school friends.
Yes, one of our friends in grad school who, as you can tell, was from Canada.
He's my favorite. He's my favorite Canadian.
He's only one of 2 that I know. Him and his girlfriend. I'm sorry. I think it's his ex-girlfriend now.
I claim to pretend to know Sidney Crosby, so he's going to be my number 2. So, you
know Sidney Crosby about as well as I know Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, well. We've seen him. Like, we've been in the same arena.
What's funny, I told you the story of my brother meeting Aaron Rodgers?
You have not.
Yeah, so...
It wasn't fake Aaron Rodgers, right?
No. Okay. I wasn't there for it, but legitimate Aaron Rodgers. So I don't remember if I've mentioned it, we used to live in Green Bay, Wisconsin for a year and a half, and the year we were there was the year he was drafted by Green Bay. So he was in Green Bay, no one really knew who he was, and I don't know if you've been to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Like, there's not any really fancy places to eat. You have to go to, like, the local Applebee's or Texas Roadhouse or whatever, the chain restaurants to really eat if you want to go out.
That's weird to me.
Yeah, it is bizarre, but that's how Green Bay is. I think it's changed. I'm heading back there in November for the first time since leaving, but I would imagine it's probably changed, got some more high-scale places. But yeah, like these players would go to Texas Roadhouse. So anyway, my parents went out to eat one night, and Rodgers showed up with offensive lineman or something. No one knew who he was because it was Brett Favre's team at the time. And he just sat down at the booth. And, of course, my dad and my mom and my brother, who at the time was 9, 10, recognized him. And my dad was like, hey, go talk to him, go talk to him. For whatever reason, I wasn't there. I couldn't tell you what I was doing. And, yeah, when I got back from wherever I was, they were like, hey, we ran into Aaron Rodgers at the restaurant. And at the time, I was like, what? Seriously? Cool. And then now we fast forward almost 20 years, and I'm like, that motherfucker met Aaron Rodgers at just some podunk restaurant.
I'm sorry, but my favorite thing about that whole story is the thought of Aaron Rodgers looking at a waitress in Texas Roadhouse and being like, "Can I get some more cinnamon butter, please?" Like that. That just.
I don't know if that was the restaurant or not. I just said it.
We're gonna pretend it's Texas Roadhouse. I don't care what it actually was, but like just the thought of him like looking at a waitress like young out of college being like, "You mind if I get some more rolls?" Like that's just fun. Like that is not humanly possible to think that one of the greatest players of all time ate at a Texas Roadhouse and was just like,
I can't imagine that they do that anymore. Maybe the younger players do that now because no one knows who they are, but I highly doubt Aaron Rodgers is walking into a Texas Roadhouse. I don't remember meeting very many. I think the coolest person that I met while in Green Bay was probably Doug Peterson, who was one of the backups to Favre. It was Favre, Peterson, and Rodgers in the quarterback room.
That's bizarre in itself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's a photo out there. I can send it to you. At one time, their quarterback room was like Favre, Matt Hasselbeck, I think Kurt Warner, Doug Peterson. There's a photo of them, and I think Andy Reid was their coach. It's absurd.
Yeah, what a time. The NFL's fun.
The NFL is fun. We can talk about that here in a bit. We still got to give Stanley Cup predictions.
I was going to say, we have to talk. Okay, so my coin flip. Back from cinnamon butter. My coin flip teams, I'm actually giving it to the Metro. I think that could be the Rangers or the Hurricanes.
You know, I was close. I think the Hurricanes, just lack of star talent is going to hurt them in the playoffs. You got to have stars. They do have depth, but you need a star. When Sebastian Aho is your best player, and he's a really good player, but like, where do you think he ranks in the NHL?
I mean, top
10 to 15?
Maybe. I mean, it depends, right? And it changes every year. I mean, he could come and have the best season of his career, and we say, oh, he's top 10. But realistically, top 15, top 20, I would say.
But I like that New York pick. I strongly debated going with New York here. But I'm sticking with the Atlantic. I'm going with a team that has been there, has been close, and seems poised to break out, and that is the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, Florida would probably, if I was ranking my contenders, I would probably put them third, but behind them, I don't know. There's just something about.
I'll tell you what, Bob Brovsky scares me a lot.
Yeah, and it's my own bias of watching him play for Columbus and get eaten alive by the Penguins of those years, and just watching him fail so many times in the playoffs. I want him to be good. Like, I want to see players get over that. I know it sounds atypical for somebody who's a Penguins fan, but like there was a refreshing aspect to see Alex Ovechkin get that cup and be like, finally he did it. And I want that for Sergei Bobrovsky, but I don't know if it's going to happen.
I think he can, especially if they keep this core together. But yeah, I agree. I mean, he worries me. He's great in the regular season. He's had his struggles in the postseason. I just think that they are a really talented bunch. And then, like I said, I don't trust Toronto. I think Tampa Bay. Like, I think this is the start of a minor regression a little bit where they come back to normal. That's a better way to phrase it. And then in the Metro, the Rangers are young. Pittsburgh's aging. I don't think Carolina has the star power. So, whereas I think Florida does. So, it's a really interesting dynamic here.
The minute that I knew that the Rangers were going to be dangerous, coming out of the pandemic, they were building this little core, and you're like, okay, like, they have some decent players. and they're like, oh, they're gonna get the number 1 pick, Alexis Lafreniere, and then they have Kako, and now that they have Shesterkin, I'm like, they really just
like that rebuild like that.
Right, the rebuild took no time. It was like a Sheets construction crew. It was This is incredible. And now I'm talking about them as a Stanley Cup potential.
By the way, so I actually do love Sheets. I think love Wawa more. I've only been to one Wawa in my life. But Wawa's good. I love Sheets. I've found a spot here in Texas that far exceeds Sheets, though.
What is it?
A Buc-ee's.
So we have not to get too deep into this. I work at a hospital. One of our volunteers, they live in Nashville. They have time that they spend in Nashville. She was just explaining to me about Buc-ee's. She's like, it is everything you could ever want. I'm like, what are you talking? And then she showed me video. I'm like,
yes,
that is insanity.
Yeah, it is. I heard because my mom was asking me to compare it to something, and I said at first like a Target and a Sheetz combined. And she said, well, I heard a Cracker Barrel store and like a Target or a Walmart or something. I was like, that's probably better.
I don't know. Not me coming to the West.
There are a lot of aspects of both. There is the Cracker Barrel store a little bit. There is parts of it that's like a Walmart or a sporting goods store. I'm not joking. And then there's the made-to-order food. Like, it's incredible. What
part of the Cracker Barrel store, though? Because is it like the toy section and like the...
It's more of the home goods. Like the clothing and like the knickknacks and...
Is it like the older people clothes?
Say that again?
Like, like Cracker Barrel has like, they have like some like younger clothes, but it's like there's like an older population that more...
No, I would say it's younger.
Okay, all right.
A lot of home decor. Okay. Buc-ee's is incredible.
I was going to say, because if it's like the cool soda and candy side, I'm in.
Not really. It's more the home decor.
Okay.
And there are clothes there. I don't know where the closest one would be to you. I know they built one in Kentucky. I think in between Huntington and Lexington. Okay. Somewhere in between there. I think Richmond, Kentucky. It's somewhere in there. Okay. They're building supposedly the world's biggest one around Pigeon Forge. However, that lasted for about a minute because now Texas is building the world's biggest one, which I knew was going to happen.
Well, I mean, do we even have to say it?
Everything's bigger in Texas. Well, the biggest one is in Texas. It's in San Marcos. I've been meaning to get out to see it, but it's like 4 hours from me. And, then like the one in Tennessee, and I think one in Colorado had the title for a bit, even though they haven't built the stores yet. And then while they're building those, Texas announced that, we're going to build the world's biggest one now.
So the idea that like this place is so incredible that everyone is creating the world's biggest one.
I mean, dude, it's ginormous. The biggest one's going to be about 80,000 square feet.
Okay, so in terms of like, oh my gosh.
I'm not exaggerating.
In terms of, so size matters when it comes to Buc-ee's.
Yes.
But volume matters when it comes to Sheetz, where you go to like a small town. Like if you go to Altoona, Pennsylvania, where Sheetz is headquartered, there's literally one on every block.
That's amazing.
It's incredible.
No, Buc-ee's isn't like that. Buc-ee's, they are spread out. The closest one to me is about an hour from me, closer to Houston. There are quite a few around Houston, but Houston's so big it really doesn't matter. Between here and I think other than the one an hour from me, the closest one is Mobile, Alabama.
Okay.
And then there's one up in Birmingham where my mom lives, and then they're building one up near Huntsville where my brother lives. So we're all going to be near a Buc-ee's soon.
I have family close to Birmingham. Not me traveling to Birmingham, Alabama to maybe see my family and go to Buc-ee's.
or just drive down to Richmond. Richmond's not that far away.
That's true. It's in Virginia, which is where I live.
Well, I think it's Richmond, Kentucky, not Virginia.
Oh, Richmond, Kentucky. Okay, yeah. Not where I live. It's not close to Richmond, where I live in West Virginia.
So do you want to talk about football? I mean, we could talk about Buc-ee's all day, but
I need to see it first to get to it. I mean,
I'll send you all my pictures. I took my mom there. My mom's, you know, I don't want to say a snob about that kind of thing, but I took her there and she was impressed. Very impressed.
In talking about something that I know nothing about in Buc-ee's or something that I know a lot about in football, I'd rather talk about Buc-ee's because this is probably the first year of being a football fan that I'm just truly depressed to have to watch games on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah, definitely Saturdays for me. I don't really enjoy watching Green Bay all that much this year, which is a shame to say because, you know, we're doing all right. We're probably going to make the playoffs. We're not like Pittsburgh that's in really bad shape right now. I'm not trying to rub salt in the wounds there. It's just the truth.
You don't have to. It's already been full. It's full of salt. The wound is full of salt.
No, I will say, I do believe Pittsburgh's going to string some wins together. Tomlin's too good of a coach. They're too talented defensively. They're not going to finish 2-15.
I mean, maybe it's an overreaction, but like I saw, and I think the hard part for fans to understand is we just watched them play what could be considered the best team in the NFL.
Yeah.
With Buffalo. Could be. There's other arguments to be made, but we watched them get destroyed by a great football team. Yeah. We are closer to the middle than what Buffalo is. Buffalo is of the top tier of football.
I agree.
I agree. We will string wins together, but I could also understand that we finish 5-12.
That doesn't seem impossible. I think that's realistic. I was going to say 6 or 7, which that's around where I had them. I think I had them at around 8 and 9 going into the season.
And I'll admit, hand up, I was on the Mitch Trubisky, he'll be fine, it was a system thing, it wasn't, I don't hate Mitch Trubisky, I just don't think he's NFL quarterback starter material anymore. I even said previously, I said he's going to get another job as a starter in the NFL, lo and behold, he was here with the team that I root for.
Yeah, you would think, you would imagine Pittsburgh regrets not trying to get on one of these quarterbacks that was traded.
Well, the one argument that I saw that I found interesting for Pittsburgh's sake is somebody said if we really thought that Trubisky was supposed to just be a gap quarterback, why would we sign him and pay him the $7 to $10 million that he's making when we already had Mason Rudolph? And I know people in Pittsburgh and likely other circles are very like, what do you mean? Why would you do that Mason Rudolph, not great, but also can win games?
Is there a huge drop-off between Trubisky and Rudolph? I don't think there is.
So, if we spend that money elsewhere, does it help us? Maybe not, but it is an interesting argument. Not one that I've explored super close because I'm just sitting here thinking about who we're going to draft.
Well, I'm still surprised they didn't try to go after Garoppolo. And I know Garoppolo had shoulder surgery, and I think that turned a lot of teams off him. But I'm still very surprised. I thought he was going to end up in Indianapolis or Pittsburgh.
Now, what I will say is that I at first thought that we were very much in on Malik Willis, not Kenny Pickett.
I thought that was the case.
And I had convinced myself that we were going to take Malik Willis. Like, I was sitting with my friend that I watch every draft with, and I said, 20, whatever pick comes up, I'm like, all right, cool, it's Malik Willis. And then they said Kenny Pickett, and I was like, everything that I knew for the last 3 months is wrong, because I knew that they were taking Malik Willis. But I'm in on Kenny Pickett.
Once I saw his hand size, and I'm not a big hand size guy, but that concerns me a lot in the cold weather of Pittsburgh. And like one of the smallest hand sizes ever recorded for a quarterback. That concerns me a lot. Average arm too in cold weather doesn't seem like a great fit.
It would concern me more if he played for like Florida. But because he played for Pittsburgh, it doesn't.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah,
is as much. But if he was like a Georgia quarterback or something, I might buy more into that. But when you play, I mean, he literally played in Heinz Field. So
I don't like. He's already wearing 2 gloves. It's October. I don't like that. I don't know. I'm old school. I like big quarterbacks with big hands. I'm not going to go any further than that. And I love to pound the rock offensively.
Well, I mean, if you really want to turn this into a 4-hour show, just let me go through each issue that I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers have.
No, just my issue with Green Bay was they had it at 3rd and 1 against. I mean, I had a lot of issues Sunday with that game against the Giants. I know it's London too; those are weird games, but it was 3rd and 1 inside the red zone, and we don't run the ball once on either play. We throw the ball.
I think the interesting thing about Green Bay that I can see as an outsider, Aaron Rodgers is clearly one of the best ever. I am never going to deny that. I think he's one of the greats. Everybody would, but they abandoned the run oddly for a team that has Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon.
Yeah, well, my issues. I have a couple. I like Matt LaFleur a lot. He's brought some rejuvenation to the team, and I fully believe we are in a better spot with him than we were with McCarthy. However, there are a couple things I have an issue with him. One is when we get punched in the mouth under him, we never have a response. Number 2, I think he abandons the run game way too quickly. And number 3 is he doesn't seem to have a backup plan in case the team adjusts.
Right.
Those are my 3 big issues.
I just, when it comes to running, like if your running backs were maybe anybody different, I might be able to understand it. You know, we're going to put it in our legendary quarterback's hands. Hall of Fame, like we know he can do it.
And, you know, if you want to tell me about the clock, that's fine. 20 seconds, okay, fine. I get throwing the ball if you don't have any timeouts. But they had timeouts, and there was time on the clock. Run the damn ball.
Aaron Jones is top 5 back in the league when he's
probably
firing correct. And A.J. Dillon's a horse. Like, I wouldn't want to bring him down in short yardage situations.
That duo is what? Number 1, number 2?
Yeah, in the NFL.
Yeah.
Of top best backs, 1-2 punch. Absolutely.
I think you'll get no arguments from me. I think they need to get more carries. I think we need to be running the ball 30-plus times a game and have Aaron only throw it 25 to 30 times.
And, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is efficient. That's one thing about him that I've always respected is, like, his lack of not throwing interceptions. And I wouldn't call him a game manager because he can certainly make great throws. He's not one of those guys. But when you have great backs, lean on him. He didn't
play within the offense. Play within the offense. The offense is to run the ball effectively and the play action pass. Play within the offense, and we're not doing that.
I mean, the difference of, and I'm going back far here, so bear with me here. We're talking 10 years. The difference of Ryan Grant and James Starks versus A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones.
I remember those days. Ryan Grant, who was really good. He just had too many injuries. But it was, for a time, it was James Starks. And when they won the Super Bowl, it was James Starks and Brandon Jackson, who no one knows who Brandon Jackson is.
I remember Brandon Jackson.
Then it was James Starks and kind of Cedric Benson for a little bit. Then he got hurt. And then it was James Starks and Eddie Lacy. And then it transitioned to Eddie Lacy. And then he got fat. And then it was, I remember, Ty Montgomery and other guy, Christine Michael. And then it was Jones and Williams, which is what it's been for about 3-4 years. And then we decided to pay Jones and Williams, which I understand. And Williams left to go to Detroit, and then we drafted A.J. Dillon. Yeah.
But I think you would agree that that's probably the best 1-2 that you've ever had under Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And aging Aaron Rodgers, albeit still good, help him out.
My friend still gives me shit about that draft, how they went Jordan Love in the first round and A.J. Dillon in the second. He was like, you could have gotten someone better. I'm like, first of all, I don't know what game you're watching that makes you think A.J. Dillon's not a really good player. Like, I feel like he's established that at this point, that he's a really good player.
Yeah, I mean, there are not many backs that I would rather have in a short yard situation because I just have to look at him from waist down, and I'm like, yeah, he'll get it. I just look at his quads. I'm like, he'll get it. I don't really have much of an argument other than that. Like, he will just push everyone forward.
Do we dare talk about our Mountaineers? It's Tuesday. We play on Thursday. I'll be honest, I'm not looking forward to it.
So I think I'm going to be there.
Okay. And
I am very nervous. I'm very nervous for this team, this future. I just, I've said this before in other podcasts, and I'll say it again. When it comes to West Virginia fans, I'm going to call you out for a second. We are not a blue chip program.
No.
We never have been and likely never will be. One of my favorite things to hear, and you probably heard it when you were here too, is you walk in and out of Milan Puskar Stadium, and mind you, we're a team that's been around for 130 years-ish. We have 9-10 win seasons.
Yeah, 130. It's only 9?
9-10 win seasons.
I thought it was way more than that.
People look back and they say, well, we have to get back to the standard of the Pat White and Steve Slayton and the Owen Schmidt year. That's the standard. Let me tell you something. That's the exception. The exception to the rule is to be a national championship contender. Our normal seasons are 7-5 or 8-4. Like, that's where we can hope to be. This year's going to be under that. We're not a great team this year, and it hurts because we have good players.
No, I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. My expectations are a little higher. I would say 8 or 9 wins. That's just me, though. But yeah, this is the lowest. I said it after Kansas. I recanted a little bit after how I've seen Kansas play. But it doesn't really change my opinion. This is the lowest the program has been since the 70s.
Yeah,
it's not really. I don't think it's even close.
I think when you're talking like years at a time, yes. What was the year? Was it 2014? The Ford Childress year?
2013.
Okay, so that was
bad.
That year sucked. That year was absolutely terrible.
As bad as it was, we still had a shot to be bowl eligible that year.
Of the 2010s, that's the exception.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of great teams under Skylar Howard and Will Greer. Feel as you may about any of those guys, but those teams won games.
Love Skylar Howard. You tricked me. Not tricked me, but you almost got me to admit something I don't agree with. But love Will Greer. Skylar Howard, I'm lukewarm on.
Skylar Howard could win games.
Yeah.
That's what I will say about him. He was a great passer who could win games. But the direction of this program is so interesting because I really had expectations this year. I actually did. I gave myself the thought, I'm like, okay, JT Daniels is going to come in. Look, I'm pushing 30. I'm not here to rag on 20-something-year-old kids.
You're pushing 30? I think you're pulling 30.
Yeah, yeah.
No, actually, I think we talked about this. You're younger than me, aren't you?
I'm going to be, what year is it, 2022? I'm going to be 29 in November.
Oh, my God. I could have sworn you were older than me. And I think this all the time. I just turned 30. I thought you were 31 or 32.
No, it's the hair. Or lack thereof. That's all that it's ever been. Beauty is outside. It's external, and there's no hair, so it's fine. I get it. But back to football for a second. I'm not here to run 20-something kids. I'm just telling you what I see. I really like JT Daniels. I think that he's a fine quarterback, and I really thought that there was the expectation that we're going to come in and we might have some questions at receiver, but our offensive line is going to be solid. Our defense, we lost players, but we still have. It just hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened nearly at all the way that I thought it would.
I'll tell you what. JT Daniels has probably met my expectations, maybe a little bit below what I thought he would be. But receivers are a whole lot better than what I thought I was anticipating. Because I really thought he was going to come up here. I was like, who's going to catch the ball?
Yeah.
I don't think Brashford Wheaton's that good. I've been proven wrong. He's pretty good. Sam James has been inconsistent. We don't know what Caden Prather is. I'm wrong about all three. All three are having pretty good years. Even Michael Laughlin's gotten involved in the passing game. And I thought, well, we'll be able to run the ball, which for the most part we have. But offensive line, not that good. They open up some holes in the run game from time to time. Pass blocking's a major issue. And then defensively, though, outside of the defensive line, which can struggle to get pressure on the quarterback at times, the secondary is atrocious. Linebackers aren't that good outside of the run game. It's a major problem. And something that bothers me with Brown is I feel like he's always had a cop-out. He always gives some kind of cop-out and, makes him, not look as bad. In the first year it was, well, we're building something. Year 2 was, well, it was COVID. Year 3, I vividly remember the Oklahoma game losing on a last-second field goal in a low-scoring game, 16-13. And his takeaway was, well, we're trying to build a program around defense. And I bought it hook, line, sinker. I'm like, yes, okay. And then now the defense is terrible.
Yeah. So I'll be honest. When it comes to judging Neil Brown, my first year that I really looked at him and said, okay, let's analyze this, was last year.
Yeah.
Because I do. You can't fire a coach after 1 year unless it's just agreed. There's got to be something that takes you out after 1 year. COVID passed for everyone, in my opinion. It is so hard to look at what happens in that was a 6-game season, was it not? 8 games?
For us, it was 10.
Oh, we played that many?
We won 6 and no, it was 10. It was a 9-game regular season, 10 if you count the bowl game.
I might have missed some of those, but anyway. Point is I don't judge anybody about what happened in COVID. Whatever happened during that year, fine. 2021 was the first year that I was like, okay, now I can start my judgment. If we're building a program around defense and trying to be, there's a lot more. This is much deeper than just Neil Brown. My other concern is if the Big 12 sticks around and we have to stay high octane, we're not going to be high octane. It's just not. We just don't have the program for that right now. Is it coming? Maybe. I don't know. But if we're building around defense, it's not happened this year. It's been a struggle. The one positive that I will take away, and I really hope that he comes back, is I love C.J. Donaldson. That's
the one positive we have is C.J. Donaldson. A kid who was recruited to play tight end technically and is playing running back for us and is our best running back.
I adore him. You talk about being an old school football fan. Me too. And C.J. Donaldson is my guy because when he gets up, he's running. I'm not going to say he is, but he's got that Earl Campbell. I'm just going to run, and if you're in my way, I'm going to run over you or just run. I don't care.
It's not fair because he got hurt against Texas, but we're 4 games into him at running back, and I keep thinking they're going to figure him out eventually. Someone's going to slow him down. And no one really has yet. And, he did get hurt against Texas. We had a bye week. Probably not going to play this week against Baylor. But
also,
we'll see.
Mike O'Laughlin, he's been here since Pat White, right?
He's been here a long time. I think his redshirt freshman year was Greer's last year.
Okay. Even still, being realistic, that's a long time.
2018, 19, 20, 21, 22. This is his 5th year. And I think he still has 1 more year if he wants it. Because of the COVID red shirt.
Yeah. That's... Okay, we joke about Perry Ellis, but, that's insanity. That he can just hang around here and play for 7 seasons. That's crazy.
Yeah, I was all for the COVID red shirt. So I'm not going to complain about it, but it is funny.
No, it's just, honestly, he came up, the first game he came up, he caught a pass against Pitt. I was like, didn't he graduate 2 years ago? I could have swore he was gone.
Well, you think that because he's been dealing with a knee injury and, he's been off the field. So we've forgotten about him unless you're looking at the roster every day like I am.
Right. And then somebody assured me what you just did. They're like, oh, yeah, he can come back next year if he wants. I'm like, you have to be kidding me. What sorcery are we pulling with the NCAA that this man can continue to come back? But
Yeah, I think his
I
first
mean,
year was 2018. He was a true freshman, redshirted, and then has been here ever since. Look, my mom texted me yesterday, Monday, and said like, "Where are you going to watch the game on Thursday?" And I was like, "Mom, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not spending any money to watch this team from a bar and a restaurant, whatever. I'm not doing that to watch this poor excuse of a team." And she was kind of like, "That's kind of harsh." And I was like, "I'm sorry, but this staff has made me hate watching West Virginia football."
Yeah.
And this is the first time I've really said that. Like, it was hard to watch the Bill Stewart years, but there were times under the Bill Stewart years where we were still fun to watch, and we had talent. These last couple of years, the talent pool has been scarce, and we're just not fun to watch at all.
No, I especially in college football, more so than pro football, I do not like conservative play calling. I understand why it's necessary at times, but then I watch games like this and I'm like, why are we like just air it out, throw it long. I mean, maybe I don't know what reservation has had, but I'm like, I remember watching those Skylar Howard and those Will Greer teams of just watching Will Greer just dump it right in a bucket to David Sills all the time. I'm like, this is fun. I love this. We don't have that right now.
I mean, the offense isn't horrible. It's just not that fun to watch. Like, I think we can score points. I don't know what happened against Texas. Bad showing. I don't know. But the offense has been pretty good through 4 games. But, yeah, it's just not fun. I will say, though, like, a lot of people gave Brown shit for punting it on that 4th and inches against Pitt in Pitt territory. I'm not going to be too hard on the guy because I said in that situation, I was like, I don't like going for this. There was still a lot of time. I was like, if it was 2 minutes left, yes. I was like, there's still plenty of time. Your defense has played well the last couple series. I would pin them deep here. Wrong decision.
Yeah, well, see, I'm always indifferent to those immediate knee-jerk reactions to that stuff too, because it's easy. I always and I said it too earlier. It's easy to sit here and be like, "Oh, well, you should have went for that," and the analytics. I saw something you may have saw.
Brandon Staley is like the quintessential analytics guy, and he's being made fun of for how many times he goes for it on 4th down.
I think it was Bill Simmons tweeted. It says modern analytics will have coaches jumping out of windows because they say it's faster than taking the stairs, and it's so stupid. But I laughed out loud.
Bill Simmons is funny.
Because it's true.
Yeah.
They're like, well, if you go for it on the 4th and inches to this, you have a 62% chance. But then this, I'm like, stop. Because there's an element to the game that's not considered in that with like flow of the game. You can look.
Yeah, and that's what I meant. Like, I just did not like the situation here. We had a lead. Defense had played well the last couple series. Let's pin them deep and see what happens. I'll take my chances with that.
Yep.
I say hats off to Pitt for going down in 90 yards and scoring. You know, it doesn't really change my mind. I still would have kicked. I still would have punted it there.
The factor of putting them within maybe their like inside of the 5-yard line, I would take that every time.
Again, and there were still about 6.5 minutes left. If it was closer to 2, I would have said, "Let's go for it. Let's go win this sucker."
Yeah. With that much time left, and of course the way that game ended with the through the hands of Ford Wheaton, which was an unfortunate fate given the game.
And that's the thing with Brown. As much as we can bitch about him right now, it's a fluke play against Pitt and catching Kansas at the wrong time.
Yeah.
From being 4-1, potentially.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing I will say is I don't think that was Texas's best team. Because I think Quinn Ewers, is that how you say his name?
Ewers, yeah.
Sure. I think that he is their best version.
He is.
with that team. So,
and I don't know what happened. Didn't show up on the road, hostile environment. I'll let that slide.
but you know what? And you're right. I will always concede an environment sometimes that when you play, in Texas, you don't show. You're going to have one of those games. I mean, come on. Every team has them. I mean, look, Alabama almost lost to Texas A&M.
Yeah.
We didn't think that was possible. I mean, that kind of
Alabama almost lost to Texas.
Right. That stuff happens all the time. It's that's how college football is.
So that one, and as pissed as I was, in hindsight, I'm like, I was probably a little too hard on them during that game. I mean, even Alabama struggled against Texas. So
right.
I'll let that slide. But again, like, we're a fluke play against Pitt and catching Kansas at the absolute wrong time from potentially being 4-1. And that's crazy to me.
And I think that's why if we have this conversation again, say, if you have it again in 3 weeks, your view might be different. If things work out for the better the next couple of weeks, you may say, oh, well, here we are. Again, this is not a prediction. This is just a hypothetical. Hey, we beat Baylor. Like, we shouldn't have beat Baylor, but, like, we came out and had a great game. We did it, and we're moving it.
Well, all of a sudden, these next 5 games, maybe not TCU, but I think are all winnable. You get Baylor at home on a Thursday night. You go to Texas Tech, which I know we've struggled against Texas Tech under Brown, but I don't think Texas Tech's that good. You get TCU at home. Then you go to Iowa State, who I don't think is that good either. Then you play Oklahoma at home. Oklahoma doesn't look any good at all.
Yeah. Well, Oklahoma.
Then after that, I forget who's after that. I think it's Kansas State at home, which I think is another winnable game. Then it's on the road against Oklahoma State. There is a legit shot. You can win. You can string together some wins here. And I don't trust them at all.
In terms of the biggest surprises of college football, I guess it's not completely shocking because we knew that they weren't going to be as good without Lincoln Riley losing Caleb Wood. Like, there was signs. But if you would have said, okay, Texas is going to shut out Oklahoma, and they're going to drop, 49, 35?
It's 49 to nothing.
Absurd. I would, of all things of college football that have happened this season, you could have convinced me that Kansas would have been 5-0 before you would have convinced me Texas shut out Oklahoma 49-0.
I'm going to respectfully disagree, but I don't know, 49-0. I guess because I know Dylan Gabriel didn't play, so I guess if you had told me that, hey, starting quarterback's going to be out and they won 49-0, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I can see that then. But yeah, and I'll tell you what, I was way off on Brent Venables. I said on the podcast I had your not so much my former classmate, but your former classmate and Dylan sign on to preview the college football season, and he said he would disagree with me. He thought Venables was going to struggle. I said, no, I think this might be a seamless transition for him. He's coached at Oklahoma before. He's from Kansas. Like, I think he's a great cultural fit. I'm way off. Like, it ain't working. At least this year.
I think they said it at the end of the game, but they're like, they are going to have to hit the recruiting trail hard.
They've recruited well. And I know Lincoln Riley left. They probably lost some of his talent that he brought in, but it's not the entire roster.
Right. The other factor that plays into it for me, though, is I look at that, I see Texas and Oklahoma play. Again, I realize starting quarterbacks out, different game. These teams are going to the SEC. These teams are going to the SEC where if you see that and you're Oklahoma and you're like, damn, we just lost 49-0 to Texas. Who's next week? Georgia. Not fun.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Oklahoma, again, I thought that was going to be a fairly seamless transition for them going from the Big 12 to the SEC. Looks like I'm going to be wrong unless they dramatically turn things around this year and in next year or the year after. I don't know when they're going to leave. I have a feeling it's going to be after this season. They got a lot to work on.
Yeah. Texas being the most prepared, I would have probably guessed Oklahoma before Texas.
And I don't think Texas is ready either.
No, I think it's a completely different game where you play a 20-16 game. You're like, man, who do we play next week? Iowa State. Whew, thank goodness. That doesn't happen in the SEC. Even I realize Vanderbilt's kind of down in whatever.
Everyone makes fun of Vanderbilt.
Every other game in the SEC is not an easy out.
No.
Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be – all right, we just whooped Oklahoma. Who's next? LSU? Okay. In Baton Rouge? Okay.
Yeah, and then we have to play Mississippi State or Mississippi, who are never easy. And then Georgia and Tennessee and Florida and Alabama linger to – no, I don't believe they're up to that test. In 10 years, maybe, when they can, fully put programs in and they've adapted that, but to start, that is going to struggle.
Well, I don't want to push you off, man, but I know it's almost 11 o'clock where you are. We've been going on for well over an hour, probably approaching 2 hours. It's been fun chatting with you, but I think we need to hit the sack here.
It's bedtime. I'm sad we didn't get to talk about the NASCAR playoff. I'm kidding.
I was like, dude, I know you're kidding. I was like, I'm not talking NASCAR. This is my show. I don't watch NASCAR. I'm not going to give it much love.
I don't blame you.
I've pulled this is my show only once. And one time it was, I will tell a story. One time it was with two of my buddies from high school. And I had them on. We were actually talking hockey playoffs. This was during COVID. And they came on and they were starting to make fun of me, ganging up on me and teasing me for whatever reason. I forget what they even said. And I finally had enough of it. And I was like, shut up. I was finally like, I've had it with y'all. You come on my show and insult me.
I mean, we came here to talk hockey playoffs, not what happened in high school. I get it.
Well, they weren't making fun of me for high school. They were just making fun of my intelligence. You know how that shit goes. Obviously, I don't play that card. I'm very grateful for anyone who wants to come on the show when I ask you to, but so I don't ever mean it when I say this is my show. You're going to do what I want.
Jade, I never need an excuse to talk sports, ever.
I don't
you
either.
Can have anyone else in my life, I never need an excuse.
I feel bad because I feel like I should put more effort into this podcast, and at the same time I'm like, dude, you don't do this for a living. This is a hobby. I have to tell myself that constantly.
I have learned in life to, in some senses, separate it because
I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is so much harder than what anyone, everyone just thinks, oh, you come on, you talk sports, whatever, once a week. And I'm like, yeah, well, okay, try doing that in May, June, and July when there's nothing going on but baseball. And, let's say even July, because at that point, the hockey playoffs are done, basketball playoffs are done. It's just baseball. Sure, training camp for NFL is cranking up, but this is a lot harder than you think. And it's one thing, and I tell myself that all the time, it's one thing if you were getting paid to do this, but you're not. This is a hobby.
Enjoy it. That's all I can say. Because, when we had ours, the two Ryan Sports, I know last time I was on, I was still doing it. But, Ryan did a lot of work with that, and I know it was tough for him, and I'm sure it's tough for you on the back end to edit and do. I get that side of it. And
I actually don't do anything. Like, once I record it, I just upload it straight to YouTube.
Fair enough. And there's, but that side of it, I don't want to get. You could sit me down at anywhere and be like, all right, talk sports. Fair enough. Let's go.
It's funny you bring that up. I have said to my other co-host, who hasn't been on for a couple weeks, I've been meaning to reach out to him, James. I have told him before, I was like, we probably won't, but if we ever make it big and we have to negotiate, like, contracts, IP, all that stuff, I could take you to the cleaners. And he laughed and was like, oh, you 100% could, and I wouldn't blame you. Because he doesn't really, and he'll admit it, he doesn't really do anything. I just ask him to come on. I have the topics ready to go. I'm the one who uploads it to YouTube, and I promote it on social media. I say that loosely, on social media. Like, he does not do anything after coming on the show.
You're like, I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Oh, and I told him, I was like, dude, I could take you to the cleaners in a negotiation so Like, I could bend you over a barrel if I really want to.
Talk about other things, Shane.
I just think it's funny. I would never do that to him, but I've said, dude, I could easily take you to the cleaners if I really want to. And he said, oh, yeah.
This is mine. You really could.
All right, my man. I'll let you go. It's, getting close to 11. It's already 10 o'clock here. I've yawned quite a few times. Haven't slept much this week.
Understood.
I need to get into bed. And honestly, I still got some blogging to do for tomorrow's post.
God bless you. You have fun with that. But look, anytime, I'm always happy to come on, always happy to talk hockey, football, whatever. Denny Hamlin's going to be the NASCAR Cup Series champion. But other than that, you just let me know whenever, anytime. Always happy.
I love having you on, man. There was one time I reached out to you, and I think it took you about 2 weeks to get back to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to work on that.
Well, and that's always been the back of my mind. I'm like, I could ask Ryan to come on, but I don't know when he's going to approve. So when I asked you to come on, I think it was Friday, and it took all day. Like, by the time you responded, I had forgotten that I reached out. And you were like, yeah, sure, man, whatever. And I was like, oh, fantastic. And
right, because you penciled it in for 2 weeks. You're like, Ryan will get back to me on October 17th.
Well, I was like, probably a long shot. He'll get back to me in time. And sure enough, you did. And then we didn't podcast over the weekend, even though I asked you if you could. That's on me. I forgot.
I'm working on the 3 to 5 business days. I'm working on a couple hours.
I see. I kind of envy that. I'm addicted to my phone. I'm always on my phone for the most part. I know I say I don't look at it before I go to bed, but all day, like, I always have that thing near me. I have the screen facing me, so I know what alerts are popping up on my phone.
Yeah.
It really is a problem for me.
I'm guilty of it too, and that's why I feel like I can be better about it, because maybe I don't need as many alerts. But
I don't know about you. I have this thing on silent, no vibrate, no ringtone, silent. And people are always like, well, how do you take calls? How do you do this? And I'm like, I always see it. Like, yeah. I just have the screen up and I can see someone's calling me.
Yep. I'm guilty of that. My excuse for it, though, sometimes is I work in communication, so I have to be around it because I don't know if somebody will call. Like, it could happen, but I'm guilty of being bad about it. But next time you reach out, furthermore, there will be no more 3 to 5 business days.
I appreciate that. No, I'm kidding, man.
Awesome. Hey, like I said, again, I appreciate it. Working on it will be better. I always appreciate coming on. Anytime you want to call, just let me know.
I will be sure to do that. I don't know when. It's football season. I can bring you on. I know we're both big football hockey fans, but I like to get people on for the preview and then usually give them a break, see how the season starts, and then maybe bring them on after a month or two and be like, hey, not really shaking out the way we thought. It's always not shaking out the way we thought.
No, never. Never. In any aspect of life.
All right, man. I'll let you go.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Later.
Thanks again.
Absolutely. Later.
Yep.